Welcome back, AP. All right, I'm gonna do my best not to dawdle in this presentation in particular. There's a ton of stuff on this thing that it seems really heady and very way, way, way kind of above the shoulders, very mushy kind of stuff. But I'm gonna for the first time ever, I'm not gonna tell you to mute me, but I will tell you that it is 100% fine. If you want to pause, jot down, and listen, because I'm gonna go. All right, I'm gonna try and keep this thing to a nice, generous 20 minutes tops, tops. But let's go ahead and get after it. So we talked about these guys in class, right? You don't even really need to write these guys down. This is just like a quick little review, okay? So we talked about the establishment of Louis XVIII, the Restoration monarchy, right? We talked about how Louis XVIII did his best. He abdicates the throne in the 100 Days campaign, comes back, he establishes the Chamber of Deputies. He's a little more on the chill side. He lets add this to Louis XVIII really quick. He keeps the constitutional charter of 1814, right? He keeps this very, very old charter where it's it kept the civil rights of many French people underneath the revolution. It allowed them to expand their rights and actually he was much more on the moderate side, right? Then he's replaced by his super conservative cousin or brother, Charles X, right? Wants to extend the French to its empire status, invades Algeria in 1831, censors the press, jot that down too, does all kinds of really off-the-wall stuff. Fearsome war is going to break out, last till 1847, but then, of course, the Three Glorious Days happen when the whole thing collapses and they start throwing furniture at him and stuff like that. He abdicates the throne in favor of his cousin, right? So his cousin, of course, Louis Philippe. And this is where we left off in class. Let's get after it. I'm going to go down here. All right, here we go. Now, so Louis Philippe, we talked about him, and he is considered moderate as well. But a lot of people in France at the time feel super, super cheated. All right, so they feel extremely cheated because he's considered liberal / moderate. However, he claims, first of all, he does some things. He extends voting rights from 100,000 to 170,000. He calls himself the king of the French people, which every monarch in Europe thought that was a slap in the face, all right? So he's like, king of the French people. No, you mean king of France, bro. And then the French liberal is like, no, no, no. He's king of the French people. We give him his power. How you like us now? Also, he adopts the tricolor flag of the revolution as the new national symbol of France. So a lot of monarchs very, very nervous about this, okay? Many liberals are feeling extremely cheated, all right? So because he's extremely moderate as well. This guy's doing, you ever have a friend that tries to make everybody happy and then in turn makes no one happy? That's Louis Philippe. For example, here, right there, is a very aristocratic painting of him in his glory in a military uniform, trying to symbolize that Louis Philippe I is going to be the leader that France needs. And then up here is a political cartoon of him slowly turning into a pear. And as you can see, a lot of people not very happy with him at all. In particular, this guy, very unhappy. Some of you are like, that's not a guy, that's a weird stool seat kind of thing. I'm well, no, this guy named Michel Friarich or some kind of French name. This is one of the 7 attempts of assassination on Louis Philippe's life, all right? So nobody really liked this guy at all. Now, this gun right here, that's right, these are 25 gun barrels strapped to a wooden frame, all designed to fire simultaneously, right? And so this guy actually goes up with 2 conspirators, and he goes up to the top of this tower, and he's like, all right, when he passes in front, I'm just going to let all 25 barrels go, and I'm going to blow him up, all right? And I'm going to shoot the dude. So, ironically enough, though, he fires it. 7 of the barrels explode and injuring him severely, making him very easy to capture. And him and his conspirators, all 3 of them were captured and then executed by the guillotine. So then, however, some of you are like, Mr. Terry, what about the that's 25, 7, carry the 2. What about the 18 other bullets? All right, so the 18 other bullets shot down into the crowd and killed I think it's in the neighborhood of 14 to 15 different people. And actually one of the bullets, only the closest he came to it, one of the bullets grazed Louis Philippe's forehead. All right. So he was not liked at all. Right. And he's also dealing with this. Okay. The economy of the 1840s, is god awful. All right, so it's depressed. The potato blight is being felt all over the continent. Food prices are through the roof. Unemployment's way up. Pre-revolutionary activities everywhere. Okay, because here's the thing: in 1848, okay, everything kind of gets headed off. All right, so and this is what I mean by a pre-revolutionary activity. Okay, that right there, that's a political cartoon of Louis Philippe being coaxed into a fist fight by none other than your guy, Andrew Jackson. All right, so because Louis Philippe had not paid some debts back to America, Andrew Jackson is about to punch him in the face. All right, so the French people even wanted to make Louis Philippe look like a rich, pretty boy who's backing down from a fight. Also, this is King Neptune apparently telling Andrew Jackson to punch him in the face. So that's going to be a poster on somebody's wall one day. Now, here's also, before we even get to these revolutions, here's the common pattern. All right, this is one of those times I want you to pause it and jot this stuff down. Every single one of the revolutions of 1848, in numerousness that they all were, moved in a very similar pattern. All right, in the spring of 1848, there was astonishing success. Right, liberals, socialists, radicals, nationalists got what they wanted. In the summer of 1848, deep divisions emerge amongst the reformers, right? They can't win because they're not united, okay? Like liberals want this, socialists want that, radicals want that, nationalists want that, okay? In the fall of 1848, reactionaries, or the old conservatives, organized to form a counter-revolution, and from the summer of 1849 to 1851, all of the revolutionary regimes failed. All right, so that is the common pattern. Almost every single one of them moved in this fashion. And here, of course, is the obligatory map that every AP European teacher must show so that you understand how severe this was. Every single one of these red marks and or yellow marks all over the map of Europe are individual outbreaks of civil disobedience and destruction and attempted revolution all over the continent, right? So as you can tell, it looks like this thing's got chickenpox because it's everywhere, right? Like these things were simultaneous revolutions in 1 year. So the revolutions of 1848 are really, really crazy, okay? Now, we're going to cover 3 of them in particular. You don't need to write this down. The 3 in particular, in this very vacant kind of weird white void that I sit in, we're going to cover France, Austria, and Germany. All right, let me make sure I'm recording. For some reason, once in the past, I have recorded an entire flip, but never actually hit record. And so I was just sitting here talking to nothing for like 20 minutes. And it was going to be such a good flip. I was infuriated. Now, anyway, we're going to talk about France, Austria, Germany. And we're going to rifle through Austria and Germany super fast. All right, it's going to be like, and like it's over, okay? Now, first of all, France. Good old France. And yet again, like I've said before, it's the one country that is not my favorite, but yet I know the most about. All right, so Louis Philippe is being accused of not doing enough. All right, so like we said, people are trying to shoot him. They're not big fans of him. He looks like a pear, apparently. All right, so liberals are demanding more reform. They're like 70,000 more. This stinks. All right, we want a lot more voters than that. And then the socialists are like, yeah, we want everybody to vote. And they're like, shut up, socialists. Now, characterized by complacency. All right. The word on the street is that at this point, the Chamber of Deputies that was ushered in by Louis XVIII is filled with nothing but rich conservative aristocrats, okay? So the government is also going to then, in conjunction with the Chamber of Deputies, the Chamber of Deputies has been approached by a liberal constituency, and they were told, hey, you need to pass some electoral reform, all right? You need to make it so a certain number of electors have to come from the middle class. And then, of course, the aristocrats in the Chamber of Deputies go, shut up. And then on February 22nd in 1848, gigantic groups of shopkeepers, artisans, unskilled laborers are going to do what again? Throw up the barricades, right? So just like in the July days, the July Revolution, the Revolution of 1830, the 3 glorious days, put July Revolution underneath that somewhere, all right? Just like in that, the barricades get thrown up again, right? And within 2 days, to try and quell the, reaction to this whole thing, Louis abdicates the throne from just some barricades because... this is what actually happened, though, too. This is a detail that I forgot to mention. Louis abdicated the throne because he sent the National Guard to actually stop the revolution, and the National Guardsmen actually joined the revolution. So Louis Philippe's like, oh, crap. And then he abdicates the throne and runs to none other than London. That's where, everybody runs to when you're in exile from any country on the continent, right? So Louis abdicates the throne and puts his grandson in power. and his grandson, unfortunately, is only 9 years old. And the monarchy is abolished because the Chamber of Deputies and the liberals are like, we ain't having that crap, all right? So, and they create what they call a new provisional republic with 700 electors in the Chamber of Deputies that are all elected by popular votes, okay? And also that entire thing is headed by a 10-man executive branch, right? Because that's the way to go. Does this not sound weirdly like deja vu? Like the directory was 5 guys and failed. You think 10 guys is going to work? So anyway, these are, of course, the barricades that were thrown up in the Revolution of 1848 in February, all right? Now, then you have this whole thing happens. Democratic Republican France. So, revolutionaries established now what is called the French Second Republic. All right. So, some of you are like, well, what was the first one? The French First Republic was in the middle of the Reign of Terror. All right. Don't act like I didn't tell you that. All right. And then, of course, the French First Empire is when Napoleon takes over. And now we have when we had Restoration France right there in the middle. It's like the cheese, slice of cheese in the sandwich. And then we had French Second Republic is what we're in now. All right. So the new Constitution was drafted up, right? So this new liberal Constitution, again, is going to be drafted up. First thing it's brought in to keep the socialists' mouths shut is universal suffrage. Now, the liberals wanted, this is key, listen, the liberals wanted that to be the only legitimate socialist concession, all right? They wanted that to be the thing that they gave up, all right? Like, all right, to keep you happy, here, there, everyone can vote. Well, all men can vote now. How about that? All right. So other reforms they're going to pass, though, they're going to free all the slaves in the colonies. They're going to abolish the death penalty, so no more guillotine for anyone. And they're also going to create the 10-hour workday, right? So socialists, on the other hand, would say, well, we don't want factory owners or a long workday. And the liberals are like, okay, we need you to calm down. All right, we've got to make some money somehow. Now, so what's going to end up happening on the outskirts of that, though, is then, as you can already tell, there are going to be some massive competing ideologies here, right? This is the second phase, right? We can't agree with one another. Now, competing ideologies as in liberal Republicans and radical Republicans. So your liberal Republicans only want to concede suffrage and don't want to go much further, right? And they want to keep a liberally led constitutional government, all right, with a 10-man executive branch. They want to be America without the president, which is really annoying and kind of lackluster, but still. So the only thing they want to do is kind of just quell the uprisings, appease to the middle class, get the aristocrats out of here, right? And then kind of form off from there. The radical Republicans, on the other hand, were inspired by French utopian socialism, right? They were inspired by Saint-Simon and Fourier, right? They did not want this Blanqui crap, which is like bourgeois leading our government. They want true socialism. So, ew. Yeah, I added that for some of y'all, all right? So, mostly shopkeepers and affluent artisans because they're appalled by the situation of the poor, right? They're like, oh my God, they're so poor. So they're the ones that advocate along with this guy named Louis Blanc, all right? Louis Blanc, another, Laura, you'll enjoy, like another one of the few like handsome like men of this entire era. Louis Blanc had a really, really dope mustache. Hold on, let me see if I can get a little picture of him real quick. I don't want to, no, not that. Louis Blanc. So he has a very dope mustache. That's the one when he was older. I'm looking for one when he was younger. Nope, too old. There you go. Yeah, you know, not a bad looking cat. He's got like a little 5 o'clock shadow right there. But like Louis Blanc advocates, he's like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And let's create these workshops, right? Let's create these national workshops where people, if they are in need of payment or money, they can come and work here and then they can make funds for their family. And so the original workshop started out having space for about like 50,000-ish. And then they set them up and then the liberals were like, this is never going to work. And then Blanc's like, yeah, that is, it'll be fine. And then so they established these workshops. And then what ends up happening, though, is then 120,000 people flood into Paris to try and find work in these workshops. 10,000 people were left waiting to try and get a job in these workshops. They just turned into like pick an axe, public works, like, hey, go dig a ditch. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it turned into. And the only person to really successfully do this and actually mobilize an entire people was like Hitler, unfortunately. So like that, ugh, God, I don't even like saying his name. Schmittler, all right? Schmittler was the only person to ever give this a shot and actually kind of pull it off a little bit. But then, of course, he does some dumb stuff and shoots himself in a dark basement. Idiot. Now, legislative bodies, though, are going to be elected, and the socialist minority is going to be about 1 out of every 7. All right, so like the socialists were severely in the minority. Uprisings are going to be suppressed because here's the thing: the socialists, fearing the affluent liberals like actually leading their government, they storm into the Chamber of Deputies to try and actually like create another revolution, but they were immediately suppressed by the National Guard. The liberals were like, shut up, go away. And then but this ends up happening, okay? There was a violent uprising in June, right? So in June of 1848, there was a violent uprising because the workshops were shut down, all right? So now right here is the crazy thing. We now are in the era of European history where there is photographic evidence of stuff. How cool is that, right? So this is a tintype photo, and you can see the barricades that were actually lined up in these narrow streets of Paris, right? So violent uprising, though, barricades get thrown up again after the workshops get shut down, all right? So because they are going to mobilize behind them. The liberals send the National Guard out. Again, the 10-man executive branch, Louis Blanc was actually on that thing, and then he's like shut down and pushed off of it, and then that's another reason why this whole thing happens. But the workshops are shut down, right? And so in the June days, they throw these barricades up, and they stand behind them, and the liberal National Guard guns go out and execute 10,000 different people in Paris. That's insane. All right, so 10,000 poor people were shot in the streets in Paris, right? And of course, this is one of those things where it's like history books and historians they are like, oh, look how bad everybody is. That's pretty bad, all right? Like that's really, really bad. Now, the revolution reordered the Chamber of Deputies again, right, and created a new revised constitution. They were like, we have to have a strong executive. If we're going to America this thing right now, we got to do it the right way. We need an executive, right? And so they revised the constitution to include a president. Yes, the first president. All right, so and the first president of the French people in the Second Republic, guess what his name is? Napoleon III. All right, the nephew of the Napoleon Bonaparte. Some of you are like, Mr. Terry, what happened to Napoleon II? He died of tuberculosis in Vienna. Calm down. All right, now, anyway, so Louis Napoleon, though, nephew of Bonaparte, was elected in a landslide by universal male suffrage. Now you're back to a strong conservative, right? So there's your failure, right? Now, anyway, so let's get after it. Now we got Prussia and Austria, right? Let's bang through these guys real quick. Dang, we're right now sitting in like 16, or like I think like 15 minutes. Let's keep going, all right? So the successful reforms in France inspired dramatic revolts in Austria. Now some of you are like, hey, you just said that it failed. I mean like the initial successfulness, right? I mean the initial February 22nd successful, like they got their king to abdicate kind of thing was working, all right? So liberals, again, are demanding constitutions because that's what they're like. They love them. Like liberals would go to bed and dream of constitutions and laissez-faire economics, right? So they want suffrage to be extended. And the socialists are like, we want everybody to vote. And then they're again like, shut up, socialists. Now, representative governments and greater civil liberties, right? So the Austrian Empire, at the time, this is not supposed to be the Austro-Hungarians yet, okay? But this is supposed to have like a little space right there. So the Hungarians, this whole thing starts out in Austria because the Hungarians began to demand autonomy, right? They're being nationalized. They're like, yeah, we speak Hungarian. You know, we got a cool history. St. Stephen's dope, even though our crown's kind of crooked. So anyway, I'll tell you, if you want to know the crooked crown story from Hungary, just ask me on Tuesday. Now, anyway, but by the way, we're going to be playing a game on Tuesday, and I'm going to be sending your study guide out probably sometime this evening after I get some more work done, okay? Now, Hungarians demand autonomy, civil liberties, universal suffrage, right? The crown is going to hesitate. Stupid. You never hesitate, right? So underneath their ruler at the time, it's not Franz Joseph, it's Francis, yes, King Francis, right, or Francis I, he hesitates. And uprisings and revolts by Austrian students who support the Hungarians break out in Vienna, all right? So, and then Metternich flees. That right there, boom, is the end of the age of Metternich in Europe, right? He flees to London, right alongside of Louis Philippe, right? So, again, and guess what the Austrians threw up? Barricades, all right? Really cool thing about the Austrian version of the barricades, though, is they had, like, lunch lines behind them. Yeah, they would actually feed and, like, help each other behind them. It's crazy. Now, poor organization, crafty Austrians, right? So here's the problem, though, is these revolutions are breaking out, right? And there's like this left and right stuff going on and everything else. And then the problem is that the Hungarians could not get the other cultural minorities on board with this revolution. Because within the Hungarian Empire, or the Hungarian area, there are Croats, Serbs, Czechs, Slavs, like everybody, right? There's all these minorities, and they start demanding autonomy of their own. So these demands are going to begin to overlap both like culturally and geographically. Serfdom, also one of the biggest liberal reforms they accomplished in the Austrian version of their 1848 revolution, is serfdom was abolished, right? But the thing is once these serfs became free, they kind of got bored with politics and just went on and minded their own business, right? So in the disorganization, though, Sophia, the Archduchess, all right, told the nervous crown at the time, was like, you piss off and abdicate, all right, and you let my son take over. And his name is Franz Joseph, or Francis I. He's 18 years old, and he is the first World War I monarch to be elected. All right, so he is a World War I monarch, so just keep that in mind. We're very close. We're on the doorstep of World War I right now. So the armies of the Austrians are going to crush the revolts, and the new King Franz has no intention of letting them go, and he calls Russia for aid, and Nicholas I sends troops, and they crush the original riots in Hungary, right? So the even teeny tiny little bit of success that happened in Austria was momentary, right? They got the king to advocate in favor of possibly bringing in this new reform, but then Franz Joseph comes in and just slaps it in the face with the aid of the Russians, right? So good old Holy Alliance in action. Now, last but not least, you got the Prussians, right? So the Prussian liberals are going to be demanding a liberal constitutional monarchy. You're witnessing the slow death of absolutism, right? Even though these revolutions weren't successful, in the long run, you could consider them successful in many different ways. Now, factory workers and liberals are going to explode into revolt in March of 1848 after seeing France and Austria go, right? So Frederick William IV, who is a Hohenzollern, caved and granted a liberal constitution and created a new, what he was called a German state, right? The initiative to create a Germany, a unified Germany. These are the seeds of nationalism, right? Because the liberals were like, we want to be our own country. We don't want to be Prussia and the German Confederation. We got Germans that speak up different stuff everywhere. We want them all, right? We want big German empire, okay? So he also creates this legislative body, right? So middle class are going to be happy because they get their new legislative committee, right? And the new legislative committee begins to draft up a new constitution. The poor, though, they want socialism, just like always, right? So now, they start making a constitution, but the conversation at this discussion for the constitution turns towards the problems that they have in making a new German country. Well, crap, we got people like Denmark who own places like Schleswig and Holstein, right? So then Prussia, under Frederick IV, is like, oh, well, you know, if that's going to be a problem, how about we just go declare war on Denmark? And the legislative body's like, oh, thanks, Frederick. Appreciate it, big guy. Aw, so sweet, right? So Frederick turns, and then he actually wages war against Denmark. And then for a moment, Frederick realizes, he's like, wait a minute. I just declared war. We're going to win this war. I have the power to do this. I don't need these like uppity middle class and socialist turds trying to tell me what to do. And then he turns around and the legislative body completes their constitution. And in it, they said that they elected him emperor of the German national state. Frederick is furious. All right, so as a Hohenzollern, and he feels like he has betrayed his family line, he disbands the new legislative branch set up by the new constitution and issues a new conservative document asserting his divine right to rule. He's like, get the hell out of here. And then, so get out of here, and he disbands them and pushes them out. And then he says in a quote, he's like, I will not take this crown from the gutter. All right, so immediately destroyed, right? Now, the results in Austria and Russia, and the Holy Alliance brothers are going to tell Prussia that they need to chill out. And so Prussia is going to retreat back and stop trying to create this new German state for now. And then the Hohenzollerns are going to try to create a Germany, the Hohenzollerns started trying to create this Germany, but this leader wasn't strong enough. However, his son and a close advisor would be strong enough. And this right here is a political cartoon down here in the bottom right corner showing that of course, Britain looking across the English Channel. You have the French over here sweeping aside their remnants of a revolution, the Prussians, the Austrians fighting off the Hungarians and several other people. The large figures in the political cartoon are all the old conservative guards, of course, backed up by the church, sweeping away the revolutionaries and just cleaning up house, right? So 1848, stuff blew up all over the continent, even though it wasn't that successful. Very good job, guys. I'm very, very impressed. So I hope you have a great day off tomorrow. All right, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. We're going to play a review game. You'll get your study guide sometime this evening. All right, start working on that bad boy. Just kind of glance over it. I think that you guys really got this unit. I think you're going to crush it. All right, so I hope you all have a great evening. Bye. Have a good one.